Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts. And I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Every other week in this podcast series, we'll share with you the inspiring and heartwarming stories of some of the students and professors who have shaped LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Friday as you are listening to the show today. We, however, have pre-recorded on a Monday afternoon, so I'm having a Friday on a Monday. Mark Suppin, why are you doing this to me?
Not my fault.
We are chatting today over Zoom with Mark Suppin. He is an extension agent with the Virginia Cooperative Extension. He's based in the Frederick County office, but he does serve all 5 of our surrounding counties. And Mark, it is, I guess not technically fall, but it feels like fall. And we're going to be talking about fall lawn care today.
That's right, Janet. Thank you so much for having me. And not everybody thinks of lawn care and lawn management at this time of the year, but it's actually the best time of the year to do many of the tasks that should be done to your home lawn this time of year. So many of the large marketing efforts don't target fall. They come out in the springtime after we've been cooped up for several months in the house and everybody's anxious to get out and do work in the yard. But that's not really the most ideal time to do a lot of our lawn care work. So we're going to talk about the fall lawn care that should be happening right now.
One thing that we all think about where our lawns are concerned in the fall are the leaves, the dreaded leaves. And we're either bagging them or we're leaving them lay, which we shouldn't be doing. Some of us are mulching them back into the ground, but you've got some suggestions for how we should be managing our leaves.
Certainly, leaves provide a lot of good organic matter. They are resources that the trees have taken up from the soil and the air, and it would be best to return those to those soils if you can. Now, you're not going to want to leave them just laying on top of your turf grass, as they will shade out the turf grass and add to the demise, honestly, of your lawn. So you will want to get them up. You can reuse them as mulch elsewhere in the lawn, or you can mulch them as you mentioned, Janet, and grind them up fine enough that they can sit and return back to the soils where the turf grass is.
And I only know that that's an option because that's what Tim does. So he gets out there on his mower, even if the grass doesn't necessarily need mowed, and mows the leaves so that they get chopped up and get spread out. I didn't realize until I read the thing that you sent over to me that that's actually one of the smartest options that you can do.
It really is. If you have a mower and that's powerful enough to do that and has the mulching capabilities, that's a really nice way to get rid of a lot of leaves, and it returns the nutrients right there in place.
So one of the things that I have been thinking about during the pandemic was starting a compost, and then realized just how much work that might be and thought maybe that's not something I want to take on just yet. But a lot of people use their leaves in their composting.
Leaves can be good carbon material for compost piles. They're not really heavy in green matter typically. They've dried out some and will take a little bit longer to decompose. So if you have green matter, high nitrogen materials like grass clippings that you're trying to get rid of, or some food waste, vegetable food waste that's high nitrogen, mix that with your leaves and it provides a good compost material.
You mentioned a second ago turf grass. Is that like just the standard phrase for grass, or is that a special variety?
It's jargon probably for us. The typical homeowner is going to call it lawn or grass or whatever. In the industry, we often will say turf grass, just to help differentiate maybe a grass species between a turf grass species versus something that's used for a forage, pasture, something like that in the more ag setting. So just a way to clarify a little bit.
Well, I hate our grass. I think our grass is horrible, and I have watched way too many HGTV shows during this pandemic, and I told Tim that we needed to just dig all of it up and put down sod, because when they're redoing these houses on television and they lay out sod, that is a beautiful, beautiful front or backyard. He says we can't do that. So I'm guessing you're going to have to tell me today how to convert my ugly grass into something that I'm not so ashamed of.
We'll work on it. Sod is a great way. I mean, now's a good time to sod as well. It gets you an instant new lawn, and it's a lot of work. It's usually expensive, but it gets you that instant gratification.
Yeah, that was his argument. It wasn't so much about the work, but he said, do you have any idea how much it would cost to sod our entire backyard? And after that was a dead conversation. So should we be fertilizing? I mean, how do you know how to take care of your lawn?
Good question. So again, as far as timing, this is the perfect time to do so many tasks for our lawns. Seeding, whether it's the initial establishment or whether it's renovation, can be done now. Fertilization, now is the right time to be doing that. Really, September, October, November are good months for fertilization. Even our weed management of pre and post herbicides is the timing is perfect. And if you have to do any cultivating, dethatching, aerating, overseeding, spreading of compost, this is the time to do it. So that's why I'm on here to talk about this, and I appreciate you being gracious enough to let us do that.
Now, I know from gardening per se that soil samples are important before you decide you're going to plant a vegetable garden or even a flower garden. Do I need a soil test for my grass, for my lawn?
You do. We certainly recommend soil testing for the lawn as well. That's a good way to understand and get sort of a baseline understanding of what's happening anywhere in your landscape, whether it's the lawn, whether it's the ornamental beds, whether it's for your tree, whether it's your vegetable garden. You want to understand what your soil has, what it's doing, what its nutritional capabilities are. And so a soil test for the lawn every 3 to 4 years is what we would recommend. We have instructions and resources on being able to do that and take a soil sample through the Virginia Tech Soils Lab. So you can get that information at our extension offices, or online are the instructions and the forms, and you can pick up the boxes at one of our offices. Some of the local libraries, like in Shenandoah County, carry some of these resources. You can even check out a soil probe from our offices to assist you in taking that, basically with a core sample. A little easier than digging with a shovel or a trowel sometimes, especially if you're doing a lot of soil sampling.
Now, how do I know what kind of grass that I have? Because I would imagine that's also important, is if I'm going to be reseeding or filling in holes or trying to do any kind of maintenance to make it look a little bit better in the spring and the summer, I probably should know what I've got to start with. Is there a way to know where to start?
I think it's pretty difficult for the typical, residential yard caretaker, home caretaker, to identify in person. So feel free to send us information either at the extension office, or you can contact our extension master gardener volunteers and we can assist you with that. But that being said, the majority, by far, of our lawns in this region of the northern Shenandoah Valley are cool season turf grasses. I'll use that term again, turf grass. You can either have cool season or warm season. The warm season grasses, we have a few of those lawns around, but they're not as common. Zoysia grass, Bermuda grass would be two examples of warm season grasses. We see a few of those around. Those will brown out in here in the next few weeks or month as it cools down. They thrive in warm season, and a few turf like ball fields are done in the warm season grasses as well, because they can hold up better with high traffic. But most of our residential lawns are going to be cool season grasses. And when I say cool season grasses, that's typically a turf type tall fescue and or bluegrass. And a lot of times it's a mix of both, and having a mix of both is a good thing. Turf type tall fescue and bluegrass, and some of the proven varieties of those is what you're going to want typically in this area. I would not recommend overseeding with that. If you have a warm season grass established lawn already, we would probably want to talk on the side, consult me or consult our extension master gardeners if you're dealing with a warm season grass lawn already. But for most of us, it's going to be a cool season grass, turf type tall fescue, and bluegrass.
And should I just go out now in the middle of September and buy a couple of bags of seed and just start spreading it everywhere in the hopes that it'll fill in and eventually overtake the ugly grass that I have now? Or is it really just not that easy?
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. You can do a little overseeding sometimes in the winter or spring when you get the cracking and heaving because of the frost freeze cycle. But it just, by and large, I like this quote in one of our publications. It says, simply applying seed over the top of an existing turf without any soil preparation usually does nothing more than feed birds and wildlife.
Oh.
So unfortunately, you can't, Janet.
Now, you mentioned aerating earlier. That's where holes get poked in the dirt. Can I aerate and then seed? Look, I am really looking for shortcuts here. Can you tell?
Correct. Aeration is something good. If you have large bare spots, you're going to want to rake those out or apply maybe a 1/4 inch of compost as your soil contact. You're looking for good soil to seed contact. And that will help ensure germination of your grass seeds. So aeration. Now is a good time to do that. The reason we aerate is to help relieve compacted soils. Soils get compacted because we have many heavy clay soils in this region, and foot traffic, pet traffic, even your lawnmower traffic will compact the soils. And to relieve that, core aeration is what we recommend. That's actually taking a plug out of the soil. You're typically going to have a walk-behind machine that you rent, or sometimes a pull-behind machine that you can put behind a lawnmower or a larger tractor. And we want the kind that does take that plug. If you have one that just pokes with tines, pokes a hole into the ground, that can actually increase the compaction issues that you're dealing with. So you want to make sure you're using a core aerator to pull plugs up out of the soil and leave them on top of the grass.
See, now that I had no idea. I assumed, yeah, all I got to do is plug holes in it and I'm good to go. So that's good information to have.
Right. Yeah, what that's doing is you're just pounding in holes and really forcing soil aside, which is packing it together more, losing the pore space that you really need. And that's the whole reason for this, is you want better pore space in the soil, better structure, so that you have better conditions for your roots. They need access to oxygen in the soil, and the soil needs a place to retain moisture to keep your grass plants watered.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I have one more question for you on lawn care. And then I know you have some water testing things that are coming up in October. So can you give me the details on who should be getting their water tested and how that process works?
Certainly. Be happy to talk about that.
All right, we'll do all of that in just a couple of minutes. We are on the Zoom screen today with Mark Sutphin. He is an extension agent with the Virginia Cooperative Extension. We're going to come back and continue this conversation with him in just a couple of minutes.
Do you know anyone who is struggling with financial hardships because of coronavirus? Our new webinar called Coping with the Money Crunch can help. We'll talk about immediate options to consider, revising or creating a spending plan, and lots of community resources. Then we'll cover how to narrow your priorities, contact creditors, and avoid scams and risky loans. The webinar is free, and you can either join by phone or through Zoom on a smartphone, tablet, or computer. You can find out more by visiting the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program on Facebook or calling Karen Poff at 540-635-4549. Let me show you how to make your own plan or help someone you care about get through the crisis. Call 635-4549 or visit at NSV Financial Education on Facebook today.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. It is Extension Office Friday. As you are listening to the show today, we, however, have pre-recorded our conversation over Zoom with Mark Sutphin. He is an extension agent with the Virginia Cooperative Extension, based in Frederick County, serving all 5 of our surrounding counties. And Mark, in the first segment, we talked about fall lawn care and that now is the time, more than what most people probably think, spring, but now is the time to be doing a lot of maintenance and fertilizing and such of your yard. I was asking you a couple questions in the first segment, and then you said something right before we went to break that prompted one more question. We have a giant tree in our backyard, and the roots have started to rise up from the actual grass. Should we be covering that with grass seed? Should we be mulching? What should you do to keep from tearing up your mower as you're mowing your grass when you have tree roots that are coming up?
That's a great question. And what it comes down to, honestly, is your preference as the property owner and caretaker, but what would be best for the tree and its survival and what it needs from a horticultural standpoint would be to mulch underneath that tree. Grass actually provides competition to that tree, and the tree is shading out your grass. So you kind of have this constant battle between tree and lawn in a really mature shade tree situation. So from an arboriculture standpoint, the tree's best interest would be to have mulch out, honestly, to the drip line of the tree. That's the outer edges of where the leaves are of a tree. And you'll see this sometimes on large mature campuses. They even do this in Blacksburg at main campus, Virginia Tech, where a lot of the older trees, that's what they've done. They've gotten rid of the turf grass underneath the tree because they're concerned, and their priority is survival of these large majestic trees. So they mulch underneath of them, so you get rid of that competition between turf grass and the tree roots, and you don't have lawnmowers under there scalping the tree roots and damaging the tree roots and your mower at the same time.
So then I shouldn't be planting, say, putting mulch around or putting dirt around and planting hostas and then mulching. Planting something isn't any better of an idea if grass shouldn't be growing there.
You're right. That's not ideal for the tree. Although our aesthetic desires and what we typically like from a design standpoint is to have multi-layers of ground cover, and then some smaller perennials with shrubs, and that large mature specimen tree, or a few of them here and there. And that's what we like to look at. So it comes balancing, again, that's back how I started it. It's a little bit up to the preference of the property owner, but it becomes a bit of balancing aesthetics versus horticultural best management practices.
Well, and I have a ton of don't be shocked, orange flower pots, big giant orange flower pots. So we could mulch around the tree, and I could just set those pots up in the mulch because they're not really going to damage or hurt anything, but I still get the benefit of having something pretty under the tree without it competing with the
You
tree
certainly
roots.
could. Yep.
All right. Okay. I'm going to remember you said that. I'm going to make Tim, if Tim's not listening, I'm going to make sure he listens to the podcast so I can say, Mark said we could put pots.
Don't blame me that Tim has more work.
Well, he's going to be excited when we now switch topics to something that has nothing to do with us. Water testing. So the Extension Office does water testing clinics. Tell me about those.
Sure. This is a program that we try to offer every year, maybe every year and a half or 2 years. And it's the Virginia Household Water Quality Program. And we offer it locally, again, that time frame, about once a year. But the testing is for private water users. If your supply comes from a well, a spring, or a cistern, then you are on a private water supply. You're not getting municipal city water, municipal county water, whatever it may be. And no one is checking that water that's coming out of the ground, but you, the property owner or the renter of that property that's drinking that private water supply. So this is an opportunity for us to educate people on that private water supply and to get them a reasonable price test. The testing actually happens at multiple labs at Virginia Tech, one in biological systems engineering, or some of them happen in biological systems engineering, and some of them happen actually in what's now termed the Flint lab because of all of the work with Flint, Michigan. So the heavy metal testing and all of that happens in that lab. So this is, again, a great opportunity. It's reasonably priced, and it's an educational opportunity to learn about the water that you're drinking and using, to brush your teeth or use for cooking purposes on a daily basis. And you want a safe supply.
Well, this is one of those things where until I had had conversations with you a couple of years ago when we first started talking about these water clinics, and then more recently I spoke with the gentleman who owns the Culligan franchise in Front Royal, I really had no idea the number of people in the surrounding 5 counties who use well water. Aside from cisterns or springs or anything else, there are a lot of houses that use well water in our area.
There are, and unfortunately, it's a resource that's often out of sight, out of mind. You just take it for granted. You turn on the tap and here comes water and you don't think anything about it. And a lot of the parameters that we test for, you can't tell from our detectable senses. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. So testing your water on a pretty regular basis is definitely something you should be doing, again, if you have a private water supply from a well, spring, or cistern.
And you guys are having to tweak just a little bit how you're doing these setups, because I know in the past people have come to a location and been able to learn about why it's important and what's going to be taking place during the testing. But now you're doing those over Zoom, kind of like we are for the radio show now.
Right. So typically there's a kickoff meeting where you pick up your kit and you get the supplies to actually take the test or collect the water samples. And during that kickoff meeting, we talk about it. We explain how to take your sample, when to take your sample, and the parameters that we're testing for. And so we're not going to be doing that in person. We will be doing that over Zoom and have that available. There's also a small recording that we have available that you can play. It's just a minute or a few minutes to help remind you as you're going through that process of collecting your water. You can play it as you're doing it or right before doing it so that you're refreshed and understand how to collect a good sample. You bring that back to us on a Wednesday morning between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. Those are fixed times that we have to work with the labs at Virginia Tech. We actually leave the collecting location right at 10 a.m. and head south down 81 with your samples in coolers, and that way they can get to the lab and begin testing right away. Some of the bacterial parameters that they're testing for have time-sensitive parameters.
I think that's awesome. It's like Mission Impossible. You have this suitcase full of all these water samples, and you've got to get to Virginia Tech before bacteria either starts growing or stops growing.
That's right. Yep.
We didn't have enough time today to get into all of the weeds for how everything's going to work, but you've agreed to stay on the Zoom screen, and we're going to do like a mini episode where we're going to talk in more detail about what they test for, why that's important, and all of that sort of thing. So people will be able to hear that in and of itself separately from our conversation today. So I appreciate that you're taking the time to do that as well.
That's right. And so the final thing is a results meeting. So there will be one final meeting where we meet up with everybody to discuss what was found across the 5-county region. And you will have all of the parameters and details also as links on your podcast and the recording. So thank you for putting that up.
Absolutely. And I know we've got to wrap up for the radio show today. And you sent me a ton of different articles and links to PDFs for lawn care, for leaf management. I'm going to put all of that up on the show notes page for today's podcast as well. So I always appreciate when you're on the show because you always send me a ton of cool stuff that I can share with listeners after we're done on the radio.
Well, that's our mission, is to disseminate, to spread research-based information. So thank you for helping us do that.
Absolutely. We are going to wrap up our conversation on the air today with Mark Sutphin. He is an extension agent with the Virginia Cooperative Extension based in Frederick County, of course, serving all 5 of our surrounding counties. It is Friday. I hope you get out and have a great weekend. I'm going to be fertilizing the lawn and taking soil samples. I am pretty sure that's now going to be on the list of what I'm doing this weekend. I'll meet you back here on Monday. I'll have a brand new episode of The Valley Today ready to go for you just a few minutes after noon.